Hello everybody! Welcome to our class, and for today's video, pag-uusapan natin lahat kung ano ba ang GE1 or Understanding the Self. Alright, this is a fundamental course in the general education curriculum for tertiary education or for the college. This is designed to help the students understand the nature of identity, including factors that influence and shape personal identity na tinatawag. Today, issues of self and identity are very critical to adolescents. Ang dami nang nako-confuse na kabataan tungkol sa mga sarili nila. So this course was conceptualized to aid undergraduate students, kagaya nyo, develop a more critical and reflective attitude in exploring the issues and concerns of the self and identity for a better and proper way of understanding oneself. So lahat ng pag-uusapan natin sa subject na to emphasizes the integration of personal daily experiences of the students with your learning experiences inside the classroom to encourage you to improve yourself for a better quality of life. At syempre, this course is very essential din because it provides opportunities para sa inyo to gain new skills for practical application of the concepts that you've learned that aim to help you become a better and significant individuals of our society. Alright, so let's start our session by discovering the different perspectives and views on the self. Sabi nga, mas kumpleto daw ang pag-aaral kung una natin tong malalaman mula sa mga experts. So the different perspectives and views on the self can best be seen and understood by revisiting its prime movers and identify the most important conjectures made by philosophers from the ancient times to the contemporary period. Let's begin with Socrates. Para sa kanya, every man is composed of body and soul. This means that every human person is dualistic. Pag sinabing dualistic, ito yung nature ng tao, dual nature ng tao, or having two opposing principles. He is composed of two important aspects of his personhood. For Socrates, this means all individuals have all imperfect, impermanent aspect to him, and the body, while maintaining that there is also a soul that is perfect and permanent. Next is Plato. Plato is a student of Socrates. Basically, Plato took off his master and supported the idea that man is a dual nature of a body and soul. He also added that there are three major components of the soul, yung tinatawag na rational soul, spirited soul, and the appetitive soul. Yung tinatawag na rational soul, forged by reason and intellect, has to govern the affairs of the human person. The spirited part naman, which is in charge of emotions, should be kept at bay. And the last one, the appetitive soul, in charge of base desires like eating, drinking, sleeping, and having sex are controlled as well. So when this ideal state is attained, then the human person's soul becomes just and virtuous. Plato also emphasizes that justice in the human person can only be attained if these three parts of the soul are working harmoniously with one another. And we also have Augustine and Aquinas. Ang view ni Augustine on human person reflects the entire spirit of the medieval world or the Middle Ages when it comes to man, following the ancient view of Plato, infusing it with the newfound doctrine of Christianity. So, naniniwala si Augustine that man is a bifurcated nature, or yung parang na-divide into two natures. An aspect of man dwells in the world and is imperfect and continuously yearns to be with the divine. And the other is capable of reaching immortality. So, the body is bound to die on earth, and the soul is to anticipate living eternally in a realm of spiritual bliss in the communion with God. Samantala, si Thomas Aquinas naman is adopting some ideas from the famous Aristotle. Aquinas said that man is composed of two different parts, matter and form na tinatawag. Matter refers to the common stuff that makes up everything in the universe. So yung katawan ng tao is part of this matter. While forms naman, this refers to the essence of a substance or a thing. It is what makes it what it is, parang ganon. So in the case of the human person, the body is something that he shares. Are you getting my point? So to make it short, the soul is what animates the body. It is what makes us human. Next is René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy. Descartes conceived of the human person as having a body and a mind. The concept of self for him is also a combination of two distinct entities, the cogito and extensa. Cogito is the thing that thinks, which is the mind, and the extensa or extension of the mind, which is yung katawan natin, the body. Yung ibig sabihin ni Descartes is that the body is nothing else but a machine that is attached to the mind. So the human person has it, but it is not what makes man a man. If at all, that is the mind. Are you getting my point? Kakaiba naman sa view ni David Hume. David is a Scottish philosopher who believes that one can know only what comes from the senses and experiences. Para sa kanya, self is nothing else but a bundle of impressions. So pag sinabing impressions, these are the basic objects of our experience or sensation. They form the core of our thoughts. Alright, and we also have Immanuel Kant. Kant recognizes the veracity of Hume's account that everything starts with the perception and sensation of impressions. However, Kant thinks that the things that men perceive around them are not just randomly infused into the human person without an organized principle that regulates the relationship of all these impressions. So he strongly agrees that there is necessarily a mind that organizes the impressions that men get from the external world na tinatawag. Therefore, the self is not just what gives one his personality. Right? In addition, it is also the seat of knowledge acquisition for all human persons. Gilbert Ryle. Gilbert Ryle is also a philosopher, and he believes that what truly matters is the behavior that a person manifests in his day-to-day life. For Ryle, looking for and trying to understand a self as it really exists is like visiting your friend's university and looking for the university. One can roam around the campus, visit the library and the basketball court, and meet the administrators and faculty, and still end up not finding the university. This is because the campus, the people, the system, and the territory all forms the university. Did you get the point? Ryle suggests that the self is not an entity one can locate and analyze, but simply the convenient name that people use to refer to all behaviors that people make. Right? Okay, and finally, we have Merleau-Ponty. Ponty, he is a phenomenologist who asserts that the mind-body bifurcation that has been going on for a long time is a futile endeavor and an invalid problem. Ponty believed that the mind and body are both intertwined, that they cannot be separated from one another. One cannot find any experience that is not embodied experience. All experience is embodied. One's body is his opening toward his existence to the world. So the living body, his thoughts, emotions, and experiences are all one. The history of philosophy is replete with men and women who inquired into the fundamental nature of the self, along with the question of the primary substratum that defines the multiplicity of thing in the world. The inquiry in the self has preoccupied the earliest thinkers in the history of philosophy. So I hope you understand now the different views and perspectives of the different philosophers I've mentioned in this video. Now, what is the self and how can we exactly understand its characteristics? Alright, in contemporary literature and even in common sense, self is commonly defined by the different characteristics. So napakarami. First is separate. We have self-contained, independent, consistent, unitary, and private. What are these all about? Let's find out. Okay, first is separate. By separate, it is meant that the self is distinct from other selves. Lagi siyang may kaibahan compare sa iba. The self is always unique and has its own identity. So, one cannot be another person. Kahit yung kambal, di ba? Even twins are distinct from each other. Second, self is self-contained and independent because in itself, it can exist. Naintindihan. Its distinctiveness allows it to be self-contained with its own thoughts, characteristics, and volition. So it does not require any other self for it to exist. And we also have consistent. It is consistent because it has a personality that is enduring and therefore can be expected to persist for quite some time. Its consistency allows it to be studied, described, and measured. Consistency also means that a particular self's traits, characteristics, tendencies, and potentialities are more or less the same. Self is unitary, so that means it is the center of all experiences and thoughts that run through a certain person. Para siyang chief command post in an individual where all processes and emotions and even thoughts converge. And lastly, the self is private. Okay, each person sorts out information, feelings, and emotions, and thought processes within the self. So the whole process is never accessible to anyone but self. So these last characteristics of the self being private suggest that the self is isolated from the external world na tinatawag. It lives within its own world. However, we also see that this potential clash between the self and the external reality is the reason for the self to have a clear understanding of what it might be, what it can be, and what it will be. And that ends my video for today's session. I hope you've learned something. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. Have a great day.